Hi everyone, my name is Katie McQueen and I'm a registered dietitian at the Center for Cardiac and Pulmonary Fitness at the Miriam Hospital. Today we're going to be discussing mindful eating. Let's first explore why people eat. So first and foremost, we need to eat to nourish our body, to conquer that hunger. We have to get enough nutrients every day to have energy so we can thrive in our activities of daily living and feel good. But beyond that, there's lots of other reasons we eat. Some of these reasons include eating for pleasure. Of course, food tastes good. It makes us, happy. It can bring us joy when we're eating our favorite foods. We eat out of convenience. Sometimes there's convenient options for food. You weren't even thinking about food, but somebody dropped off, a basket of food at your house, or one of your coworkers brought in some treats or something at work, and all of a sudden you're eating because it was convenient. It was put right there in front of you, and there was availability of food. We also eat when we go to social events, family traditions. We eat out of habit. We eat out of temptations. And we eat to feed emotions, both good and negative emotions. Most of the time, we want to be eating to live, not living to eat. Of course, there's room for moderation and getting joy out of family events and traditions and celebrations for birthdays and anniversaries. There is room for all of that. But most of the time, we want to be eating to nourish our body in a healthy way. Mindless eating is being unaware of what or how much you're eating and drinking. Mindless eating is ignoring your hunger and fullness cues. Mindless eating includes eating when we're distracted, like watching TV, working on a computer, going on our phones or tablets. Mindless eating also includes eating to feed emotions, both positive and negative emotions. Eating with your eyes, just because something looks delicious, then all of a sudden we start eating it even though we might be full. Eating because there's food in front of you, that's the availability and the convenience piece. Clean the plate club. A lot of people grew up in a home that had a rule that you had to finish everything on your plate no matter what. And I call this the clean the plate club. After years of families doing this and seeing how these, children and adolescents turned out as adults in terms of their eating habits, we realized that maybe this wasn't the best way to go about our dinner meals. By teaching individuals to do this, especially from a young age, we are essentially telling them to disregard their fullness cues. We are telling them that it doesn't matter if your stomach tells you that you're full, you still have to eat the rest of your plate. It doesn't matter if your body is telling you you've had enough, you have to finish those 4 bites because it's on your plate. So it really goes against our intuition. So now we want to make sure that we're teaching people to listen to their bodies. If they are full, it is okay to walk away from a plate that still has food on it. Of course, we don't want to be wasteful, but we can pack up that food and eat it as leftovers the next day. We want to honor our body and be in tune to what our body is telling us. Then there's the bites, licks, tastes, or the BLTs while cooking. This can be quite mindless when you're in the kitchen and you're trying and taking small bites of different things that you're creating. Eating quickly, eating out of large bags and containers, and boredom eating would all fall under that mindless eating umbrella. So when we are mindless eating, we are ignoring our hunger and fullness cues. And if we are constantly doing that, we are going to be overeating. And if we are doing that frequently, that can lead to negative health outcomes. In the immediate future, that can lead to GI distress, lethargy, where you just feel crummy and feel like you need to lay down. Over the long term, this can lead to weight gain, increased cardiovascular risk, and other health concerns. Also, typically when we're mindless eating and kind of munching on something without even realize what we're taking in, we're typically eating less healthy foods, and that can contribute to detrimental effects on your health. This is an example of a hunger fullness scale where 1 is the hungriest and 10 is the fullest. The safe zone is 4 to 7. If you are a 1 to 3, that's considered a danger zone of being too hungry. Number 1, you're so hangry that you'll eat just about anything. Hangry is kind of a slang term for hungry and angry, but it makes sense. When we get too hungry, we can actually get a low blood sugar reaction, which makes us irritable or angry. So the word hangry does make sense. And when we're this hungry, we're more likely to eat the first thing we see. So if our hunger level is a 1 and we rush into our house, open up the cabinet, and the first thing we see is Oreos, then that's what we're going to grab because our brain needs quick fuel. If you are at a 1, you're not going to be able to come into your house and slowly make dinner or cut up some vegetables. You're just going to be looking for quick energy. So we want to avoid ever being that hungry. Number 2, you're distracted by your hunger. Number 3, your stomach is growling at you. We want to stay in the 4 to 7 range. 4, you're starting to feel hungry. 5 is kind of neutral, not hungry or full. 6 is satisfied but could eat more, and 7 is completely satisfied. Then we enter another danger zone. 8 being completely full, 9 being overly stuffed, and 10 being sick, feeling like you are in a food coma, which is another slang term, which basically just means you feel so ill you need to lay down and relax after eating a large amount of food. That is too full. That might be something you experience on Thanksgiving Day, but that's not something that we want to be experiencing frequently. So try to stay in that 4 to 7 range by having regularly scheduled meals with adequate amounts of protein and having a snack between meals to bridge that gap if you do tend to get too hungry. Emotional eating falls under the mindless eating umbrella. This is eating to satisfy emotional needs, to avoid negative feelings, and to find comfort via food. Some of the feelings that you might be trying to avoid when you're doing emotional eating are being mad, sad, stressed, angry, guilty, fear, loneliness, or jealousy. Emotional eating is also eating to celebrate happy feelings. It's eating when we're tired. It's eating when we're bored. I'm sure we've all done this time to time because we're only human. But if you feel like your emotional eating is happening very frequently, it is something you'll want to address. We want to differentiate between physical hunger and emotional hunger. Physical hunger comes on gradually, where emotional hunger is more of a sudden urge to eat immediately. Think about a typical day. If you have physical hunger, then that's gradually building when it's getting close to lunchtime. When you have emotional hunger, it might come on quickly. Maybe you're having a great day, but then all of a sudden you get a text or a phone call and somebody delivers you bad news, or they say something that upsets you. All of a sudden you feel like you need to go grab a specific food that you typically eat when you're emotional eating, whether it's chips or popcorn or sweets, but it comes on quickly when you got upset about something. With physical hunger, you're open to many foods. With emotional hunger, you're more craving a specific food. Physical hunger is in your stomach, whereas emotional hunger is in our head. And in physical hunger, the hunger is going to subside when the stomach is full. So after you eat the meal, you feel full. With emotional hunger, that hunger can remain and linger even after you've eaten the food that you did. Physical hunger, you might have a desire to eat more slowly with other people, such as friends or family members. Emotional hunger, you're typically eating quickly and in privacy. So how are we going to combat emotional eating? It is definitely a complex situation and not something that can be solved overnight. But one of the first things you can start to do is identify triggers to your emotional eating. Is there a specific location or situation or person that tends to set you off? And if so, is there a way to change your life to decrease the amount of interactions you have with this person, situation, or location? For example, if your work environment causes you to be emotionally eating, maybe you need to look for a new job. If your provider upsets you and causes you to go into a state of emotional eating, maybe you need to find a new provider. I'm not saying that these steps are easy, but for your long-term well-being, if there is a situation that is triggering you, you'll need to work on ways to navigate that. Sometimes that might be avoiding that situation entirely, or another option is, working through it with that person. If it's a family member, it's definitely harder to completely avoid that person. You want to address any negative feelings and emotions, designate a support system, Seeking out outside help, this is going to be important. Finding that support, maybe it's a group support, maybe it's a therapist, a counselor, but that's going to be really important. And practicing stress management techniques like meditation, deep breathing, going for walks outside. These are just some of the things that may help. Another strategy you could try to combat emotional eating is the HALT method. When you are about to eat something, first halt and ask yourself, am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Or am I tired? If you're angry, lonely, or tired, try to find another outlet. Either go take a nap, go for a walk, phone a friend, do something besides eat. And if you're hungry, then honor your hunger. So now that we've talked about mindless eating, let's switch over to mindful eating. Mindful eating is being fully present during a meal. This means removing distractions, cell phones, TVs, iPads, maybe loud music. It means paying attention to the internal cues of your body before, during, and after eating. Before you eat, try to see where you are on the hunger scale. If you think that you're really overly hungry and you're about to just eat that food super fast, see how you can slow yourself down. Be mindful in putting the fork down between each bite, taking a deep breath, taking a sip of water. Then check in with yourself during the meal. Are you still hungry? Do you need to eat more to get to a 7 on that hunger scale? Or are you full? Is it time to stop? And also check in with yourself after eating and see how you feel. To eat mindfully, we want to use all of our senses to enjoy the food. You want to engage your senses by taking notice of what you're eating. So what's the color of your meal? Is it all beige? Is there an orange sweet potato, an orange carrot, some red tomatoes, some white rice, some brown whole wheat pasta? Notice the smell of your meal. Does it smell like garlic? Does it smell like a warm, sweet cinnamon roll? Take notice of the sounds and textures of your food. Are the foods crunchy and loud? Are they soft, gooey, clumpy, quiet when you're eating them? And take notice of the flavor of your food. Is it salty, sweet, sour? You might think that you already noticed these things, but believe it or not, some people eat so quickly, they're not even noticing exactly what they're taking in. It's all about the mind-body connection. There is actually a nerve called the vagus nerve that goes between the stomach and the brain. It takes about 20 minutes into the meal for the vagus nerve to be activated and for that stomach to send the message to your brain that you're full. So if you eat too fast, you completely miss that signal. This is the Mindful Eating Plate, which can be found at www.eatingmindfully.com. For this plate, you'll see at the drink spot, we're being aware of what we're eating. We're tasting our food versus mindless munching. We're then going to savor our plate, noticing the texture, aroma, and flavor. We're going to observe our body. Is it rumbling? Our stomach? Are we feeling low energy? Are we stressed? Are we satisfied? Are we full? Are we empty? We're also going to be in the moment, fully present, TV off, sitting down. When you eat, just eat. Also, part of mindful eating is being non-judgmental. So speaking mindfully and compassionately to yourself. Notice when shoulds, rigid rules, or guilt pop into your mind. Tips to be more mindful while eating include eating at the kitchen table versus eating in the living room or in an office, avoiding the distractions as much as possible, slowing down, giving at least 20 minutes for that meal. To slow yourself down, practice chewing more, putting the fork down between each bite, sipping water between bites, and taking deep breaths. You also want to set up your environment for success. Use smaller utensils and smaller plates. When you have a smaller plate, the food on it looks more satisfying to your brain. Look at the picture of these plates on the right. The same amount of food is on each plate, but on the plate on the right, which has a lot of white space, it doesn't look like as much food. So then you're more likely to plate more food onto it. And then if you have that mentality that you have to clear your plate, well, then you're going to be eating much more than you would have eaten on the smaller plate. So using smaller utensils and plates can help us to eat less. We want to avoid eating out of large containers. We want to clear the counter of snacks except for a fruit bowl. We don't want to keep junk food in the house. We want to keep it out of sight, out of mind. Obviously, you might live with other people who maybe, require junk food, but try to move it into a location that is not so stimulating for you. Give that person their own cabinet or their own, box that they put it in, but don't have their junk food right out on the counter so that it's a visual cue to you every time you go into your house. You want to put healthy items you ideally want to choose at the front of the fridge, the freezer, or the pantry or cabinet for easy access. If you come home and you're super hungry and you open up your pantry and the first thing you see is Doritos or Oreos, that's probably what you're going to grab. However, if the first thing you see is, canned pineapple, nuts, some trail mix, then that would be the first thing you see. Same thing with your fridge. You want to open it up and see fresh fruit, yogurt. If you open it up and you see leftover cake, that's not going to be a good situation when you're coming in very hungry. So set up your environment to allow you to eat more mindfully. If you're interested in mindful eating or the concept of intuitive eating, these are 2 books that I recommend. Thank you for joining me and have a mindful Monday.